My and your tax dollars are helping to kill children and make Gaza's kids the most amputated cohort of children in modern world history.
But there's one place where we see folks culpable on both sides of the aisle, and I think that is really what is the reason why you met your demise at MSNBC, the critique around the genocide in Gaza.
Nobody should have to sit through an hour, 40 minutes of 20 people, 17, I think of them white, saying, get out of our country, you're not a real American, you can't be an American, you hate our country, we're fascists, etc., etc. That is, I want to say unacceptable, but it's not unacceptable, clearly. It is acceptable in America today.
In some cases, in the case of Austin, Texas, they would be broken off into a district that spans 3.5 hours drive away from their city center, where they may not have anything in common by interest of the folks who are 3.5 hours away from them, but they will be split that hard so that they could never, ever elect a Democrat to their seat in Congress. That's the complete subversion of the rules. They are cheating just so that they can maintain their advantage. That's the illegal part of this. And the question that Angela is raising, or the point that she's making, is that there are Democratic governors who right now sit in position where they could also force their states or take steps to force their states into redrawing their seats and doing the same thing.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome
home, everybody. This is episode counted 91. Just 9 shy of our 100th episode of Native Land Pod, where we give you our breakdown on all things politics and, of course, culture. We're your co-hosts today, Angela Wright, Andrew Gillum, and our sister friend, Tiffany Cross, who is the third co-host, happens to be away, but we got an update from the ground directly from her, so you don't want to miss that. Angela, what are we talking about today?
Well, we are talking about missing our sister Tiff, but also you all won't miss her because you'll hear from her. But I am really excited. We did a mini pod yesterday on Texas redistricting. Andrew, we're going to get into how this is in all the states, and we might have missed a major key alert in North Carolina in 2024.
Well, along with those topics, we're going to be able to get into it with our first guest, Mehdi Hasan, who some of you may know from a viral video going around on Jubilee where he debated a room full of, well, I'll let him describe what the room was full of. Coming up next, you'll hear from the man himself, Mehdi. But before we do that, we want to remind you, if you like this show, in fact, if you love this show, or if you like it, we want you to go ahead and please rate and review, share this episode or whatever your favorite episode may be with your friends, family, loved ones, frenemies, et cetera, et cetera.
And if you don't like it, jump in the lake. That's what he was trying to say. But also, the other thing, Andrew, we should tell people right now is we have a survey right now. Black people like free stuff. I think there's some other people in the world that like free stuff too. So if you do, you might want to fill out this survey. We launched it this past Monday and folks are already chiming in. We got a little $50 gift card for you and also a signed poster of us because somebody want that.
Somebody may want it.
I love you, Andrew, but I don't need a signed poster because I got you signed, sealed, and delivered for life.
But there may be some out there who might appreciate it. Maybe your 3-year-old child loves our faces and might
Andrew,
enjoy
hey,
it.
Davis. Does Davis want this? Davis might not even want it.
Davis is absolutely in the building, by the way, along with Carolina Jackson. I am managing them from upstairs.
You're doing good. Just don't detain my nephews and my niece, please.
Listen, well, to the audience, y'all stay tuned because we got some great show on the other side of this. We've got Mehdi Hasan, who is repping real hard that shirt today, representing the network that he has founded and is now in charge of, Zeteo. Now, he's teased Angela and I that this merch that you're looking at, it is priced in pounds. And so you want to compare the dollar to the pound.
I wish pounds are better. If you're in the UK, thanks, guys, for having me, and thanks for the plug. But it is in dollars, Zeteo.com, shop.zeteo.com. I'm a shameless small businessman now.
I love it.
But wait a minute.
Should we be jealous?
We should be jealous, but I have to do this. I did tell him before we got on, y'all, that it's more expensive because we say merch. Mehdi, what do you say?
I say merch too.
Merch. It's merch. So it's much more pricey.
Hey, I've been here 10 years. I've been a citizen for 5 years. I'm proud to still keep my accent.
Oh,
well,
I love
speaking of you being a citizen, we saw you tearing it up on Jubilee, and we actually want to go right to that clip. Let's watch.
Do you believe that wages, I'm just wondering how naive you are. You believe that the 1% will raise wages in the federal wage if we stop immigration?
They will be forced to. When you increase labor's relationship to capital, okay, and you give labor more bargaining power because you're tightening the supply of labor.
This is a very simplistic understanding of economics because you're
explain I'm wrong.
I'm telling you how you're wrong. Because you're ignoring the fact that when immigrants come into an area, they spend money. They create jobs through their presence.
About 1/5 of their monthly income leaves the country.
That's a good thing also because you don't like US aid, foreign aid. So this is the point. They create jobs. I came into this country. So far, every one of my assumptions about you has been correct. But listen to me. I am an immigrant. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Get the hell out.
I don't even like... I should get the hell out.
Yes.
Why?
I don't want you here.
Why?
Because you come here and say all this bullshit
Why?
about how Americans are lazy. Why? You push your left-wing politics.
I never said Americans are lazy.
I don't know why you say this.
I never said Americans.
Oh, my Lord.
So wait.
How do you mentally... Seriously, how do you mentally prepare for that room? I mean, I was frustrated off jump, but I stuck in there, giving my moral support to you. But how do you mentally prepare yourself for such ignorance on such a scale where everywhere you turn, literally, you're confronted by the same level, if not a greater level of ignorance?
I mean, the show is called Surrounded, and you are literally surrounded by 20 of them. And actually the worst ones, as I discovered in hindsight, the most openly white supremacists of the bunch were actually behind me. So I didn't see them for a lot of the taping. So when I watched it back on YouTube, you can see them kind of pouting and preening and making faces and gestures. They were actually behind me. So I missed a lot of their facial expressions as I was winding them up. How do you prepare for that? A lot of people have told me that they haven't been able to watch all hour, 40 minutes. They watch it in like portions because it gets their blood pressure up. And I was like, how do you think I felt? I was sitting there for the whole time. We got one toilet break in the middle in which I was able to go, what the fuck is happening here? Yeah. And then go back into the lion's den. It was this very strange experience. I knew it was going to be weird. It was going to be different to anything I'd done, but it's like nothing I've ever done in my life, personally or professionally. To be in that room, in that studio in LA, with 20 of them, and one after another, they're each crazier than the next. And I've talked about Jubilee. It's been out now for a couple of weeks. But what's interesting is you guys are the first people I'm talking to since I saw the latest Jubilee. A couple of days back, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, he just did a Jubilee that just came out a couple of days ago on one populist versus 20 Republicans and Democrats. And I noticed again that he has some normal people in there. And people keep asking, why did you go sit down with fascists? I didn't know they'd all be fascists. I knew there'd be a couple of crazies. Sam Cedar from Majority Report did it earlier this year, a good friend of mine. He said, you should do it. And I did it. And he had a couple of nut jobs, but some normal people. I seem to be the only person who went on Jubilee, and they were all nut jobs.
They were all there. Yeah.
I watched it and I was thinking, they weren't ready for that DEI. And by DEI, I mean, that's education and intelligence. Like, they were not ready for all of what you brought to them. But Mehdi, the thing that I am concerned about is what I heard you say after. And I think many of us are roaming this country right now with some of that same anxiety. Talk about how you felt when you left that set.
Not safe, deeply depressed, shocked. I and a producer and a security guard got the hell out of Dodge. People say, oh, did you chat to them afterwards? No, of course I didn't chat to them afterwards. And there was one guy as he was leaving, one of them leant over. They were all leaving the set, and then I left for a separate door. And he leant over and he whispered, I wouldn't deport you. And I was like, thanks. That's great. Okay. That's very charitable of you. No, I got the hell out of there. And in fact, this was taped the same day that Trump bombed Iran. So I didn't even have time to collect my thoughts. I had a producer telling me, while you've been taping this, Trump has bombed Iran. So we just kind of spent Saturday night covering that. So it was later on when I went out to dinner with some family and friends in LA where I was just telling them what happened, that it really was hitting me. These people were insane. What did I just go through? And now I've watched it back a couple of times. And the point I have to make, and this is going to sound, I don't really care if it sounds snowflakey, but it's kind of, as a journalist and a debater, and Andrew, you're very kind about what I brought to the debate. I enjoy doing debates. I don't have many skills in life. I'm pretty good at arguing. I've made a career out of it.
You are
I have very few skills in life, so I'm happy to brag about the one that I clearly do have. And it doesn't always work in my favor. Ask my wife. But I enjoy doing it. And I agreed to do the debate because I believe in debates. And I've written a book about debating and all of that. And that's great. And I watch it back and say, hey, there's a viral clip of me owning some guy. Great. But put that all to one side. Take off the journalist hat, the debater hat. I am a brown Muslim immigrant in the United States. Nobody should have to sit through an hour, 40 minutes of 20 people, 17, I think of them white, saying, get out of our country. You're not a real American. You can't be an American. You hate our country. We're fascists, et cetera, et cetera. That I want to say unacceptable, but it's not unacceptable. Clearly, it is acceptable in America today, and why I still think there is value to having done it, and I'm on the fence over the good and bad of having done it. The one clear benefit of doing it is it really is eyes wide open moment for a lot of liberals, a lot of white liberals who've been in denial. I spent much of 2024 people telling me, oh, it won't be that bad. Oh, the Trump people aren't that bad. Angela, you and I have had these discussions before in the past. Tiffany and I have had many discussions on this. Like remember 2016? Is it economic anxiety or is it racial resentment? It's like, go watch Jubilee. It's racial resentment. They don't give a shit about the economy. They don't give a shit about the Constitution. They don't give a shit about democracy. All they wanted to talk about was immigration and race. That's all. They didn't care about anything else I brought to the party. That was it. And for me, that's a kind of case closed, really.
Yeah. I wonder how much of you thinks that this was the rights sentiment on steroids versus like this is what you will encounter when you encounter Donald Trump voters in today's day and age.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say all Donald Trump voters are like the people in that room. Clearly not. I have people in my family who are Donald Trump voters, unfortunately. But
Wait a minute. We can't blow past that one.
I'm having an issue, but Angela,
1 in 3, 1 in 4 Muslims, depending on which polls you believe, voted for Donald Trump. It's very scary. There are people in the Muslim community who I know well, who are good people, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I voted for Trump. And I'm like, what? No, that's just I know there's a smaller proportion of the black community, but in the Muslim brown, not the black Muslim community, in the brown Muslim community, the Pakistani Indian community and Arab American community in places like Dearborn, Michigan, a lot of people unfortunately bought the bullshit about Trump being anti-war and Trump being better for the economy and voted for Trump. So I'm not of the position that every Trump voter is a racist. I am of the position that every Trump voter is fine with his racism. But the people in that room, I think what's scary, Andrew, to answer your question is a lot of them turned out to be kind of influencers online. They weren't just ordinary folks. They have like a rap online. And I think that makes it, in one sense, it makes it better. They're not just random 20 people who picked off the street. Yeah. On the other hand, it's scarier because these people exist online. They're doing very well online. They've got big followings. I'm sure Jubilee will have helped them grow their followings. They are winning arguments online with certain subsections of the population who are going down these rabbit holes and getting red-pilled. So in that sense, like the way in which white supremacy and white supremacist propaganda is so organized and so mainstreamed, that is very worrying. Like the stuff those people said to me in that room, Americans have been saying for decades, you both know better than me. But they didn't say it so proudly and loudly in front of a camera. That was what was. And by the way, one guy claims to have got fired, which I think is false. The guy who said he was a fascist since that taping. But my question is, so the rest of them, their employers are fine?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Fire all of them. So here's the next thing, and to get out of the trauma of the Jubilee experience, which is also very oxymoronic, but you have founded this company, Zeteo, and I want to just stay here for a moment because there's a prophet who also is a hip hop artist, Lauryn Hill, who said, "You may win some, but you just lost one." And so I'm wondering now, as a mainstream network that shall not be named, looks at your rapid rise and the way in which this company has filled a void that we clearly have. Yeah. When you set out to found this company, Mehdi, what was behind it? What were the gaps that you were seeking to fill?
So end of 2024. End of 2023, excuse me, MSNBC told me they were canceling my shows. They said you can stay on as a guest host and a political pundit analyst. I said no thanks. It was very clear to me that 2024 would be one of the most important news years of our life with a presidential election and an ongoing genocide in Gaza. I didn't want to be sitting on the bench. I needed to have my voice out there. So, I remember talking to my wife about this on the day that I got the news. I said, I'm not staying. I got to leave. Then it was an issue of getting out of my contract to be fed at MSNBC. It was all very pleasant and easy. And by January, I was announcing on air on my last show that I'm leaving. And we launched formally Zeteo in April. It was pretty fast. For me, it was a no-brainer that not only was I going to leave MSNBC, but I wasn't going to go to another network, another newspaper, another media outlet, because I kind of done that, got the T-shirt. And I'm now 46 years old. I've worked in the media for 25 years. I've worked in the UK. I've worked in the US. I've worked for Sky News, the BBC, Al Jazeera internationally. Obviously NBC in the US. And I was kind of like, now it's time to do my own thing.
Yeah.
If not now, when? And in terms of the if not me who, to get egomaniacal, I did look at the independent media marketplace and say, hold on, Tucker Carlson Network, he's doing really well. Sadly, Daily Wire is now this multi-billion-dollar behemoth. Barry Weiss and the Free Press. What do they all have in common? How come it's all right-wingers dominating our independent media space, the subscription space? Yes, Cenk and the Young Turks have been, around. Credit to them, bless them, on YouTube for 2 decades, and Sam Cedar and others. But like in the subscription independent space, in the Substacks of this world, how come the progressives are not that well represented? How come no one's trying to do this? Why don't I have a go? So for me, that was the driving force, and clearly. I'm not a natural businessman. Friends of mine are like, you can't run a bath. How are you going to run a company? But one thing I did identify was a gap in the market. Clearly there was a gap because the response has been so overwhelmingly positive, touch lots of wood. We're at over 1 million subscribers on YouTube right now, less than a year and a half in. We're at 500,000 subscribers on Substack. We've won a Webby for our podcast. People are coming to us internationally and domestically because I think they are fed up with mainstream media. They are fed up with cable. They are fed up with the kind of inability to cover the rise of fascism at home and the genocide abroad. And that gap has been there. And, making it a commercial success, I'm very proud. I want to build something where even if I said this the other day in an interview, I said, if I'm run over by a bus and then my mother rang me and said, never use that phrase again. Don't talk about your death. So even if I were to retire and go quietly into the night, the company would survive. I'm trying to build something beyond me. I'm not trying to build the Mehdi Hasan network, which is why we've got great people from around the world as contributors. We've got Greta Thunberg and Naomi Klein and Bassem Youssef and Owen Jones. We got really good people. And that's what we're trying to build. We need to build, like you guys with the podcast. We're trying to build in these spaces where the right have occupied these spaces and own these spaces for so long, which is why you get a kind of Jubilee crowd, because that's where they're dominant online.
That's incredible. Well, I just want to contradict one thing, which is just because you saw a void and sought to fit in that space didn't mean you'd be a rocket success. You're a rocket success because your brilliance is on full display.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
When we hear you, it is usually backed up and substantiated by what we know to be facts. Now turn to what we're all living through, which is a complete disassociation with what facts are. Everybody's got their own, and none of it connects to anything. We're in the throes of what may be an arms race, if you will, around redistricting, where we've got these big states, behemoth of states, including the one that I live in, now threatening to do half decennial, 5 year point census redrawing of districts to basically rig the game so that Republicans have a better shot at maintaining control come this midterm election. And I'm just curious, based off of your assessment of the field of states that are at play here, and where and which states are helmed by which governors. How much do you think Democrats are prepared for this arms race, and are they really willing? And what I mean by that is this potential of meeting Texas where they're at, which is to say, if you redraw at this midpoint, we're going to redraw at this midpoint, and we're going to just fight it out until one party has the greater advantage. Where do you size this up, and where do you think it's going?
I think you're right to use the phrase, Andrew, arms race, because it is about trying to get yourself an advantage with political weaponry. I mean, this is what's so wrong with gerrymandering. Let's just make clear. In a perfect world, you wouldn't have gerrymandering. Actually, it's not even a perfect world. In a normal country, you wouldn't have gerrymandering because every other normal Western democracy does not have gerrymandering. Canada, Britain, France, Germany, gerrymandering does not exist. They have independent election commissions. Politicians don't get to pick their voters. Voters get to pick their politicians. In the United States, we have gerrymandering on steroids now, and thanks to the Supreme Court. And I'm glad that we have some Democratic governors now willing to at least talk the talk. Let's see if they do it. But Gavin Newsom in California, Pritzker in Illinois, and even Hochul, who I'm not a fan of in New York, came out this week saying, I'm not going to fight with one hand behind my back. Maybe that's the Mamdani effect, dare I say. But I'm not going to fight with one hand behind my back, she said. Let's see if they actually do it. The problem we have, Andrew, of course, is that a lot of Democratic-run states have already done the right thing and did independent redistricting. So in Michigan, for example, they had a referendum. They won the referendum. They brought in independent redistricting. So even if Gretchen Whitmer wanted to match Greg Abbott's cynicism and rigging, she can't. So there is a limit to what Democratic states can do. I believe, I'm not an expert on this, that Newsom can redistrict in California despite them having an independent body, because the independent body would kick in 2030 or some such technicality. But look, 100% they have to fight fire with fire. It's the only language that Republicans understand. I interviewed James Tallarico this week, the Texas state rep, who's out now in Illinois, part of the fled contingent.
Yes.
And he made the point as well. He said, look, you've got to do it. It's got to be done. Otherwise, they have no block on their behavior. And I just saw a Republican state lawmaker from Texas. I can't remember his name. I saw him on CNN earlier this morning with Breonna Taylor. Just bluntly, I've not seen them say it so bluntly.
The three things?
He just said, she said, why are you doing it? And he said, because we can.
Yes,
and
opportunity.
Goes, oh.
We have the
goes,
numbers.
Okay, you can. Yeah. And she goes, but should you? And he goes, yes, it is good for our party. I was like, wow, the only good thing about MAGA Republicans is they do say the quiet part out loud all the time. And that is somewhat beneficial when you're, at least in terms of getting your own side to wake up to the threat. Because we've had far too many bipartisanship-obsessed Democrats for far too long. And that's why we're in this situation.
That's right.
I think that's such a fair point. I do think that it's important as we talk about grounding in this moment. One thing that you don't shy away from, Mehdi, is criticizing Donald Trump. But there's one place where we see folks culpable on both sides of the aisle. And I think that is really what is the reason why you met your demise at MSNBC, the critique around the genocide in Gaza.
Sorry, I just wanted to say rebirth. Renaming demise.
I'm like, wait. I was like, what happened? I was checking my mic to see if it was on mute. Sorry. So, one of the reasons why the relationship with the network ended is because of your unashamed, unabashed critique of this country and its role and culpability in what's happening in Gaza. Can you talk about what people need to know, just as human beings, when you sink into morality, you move politics aside, you move partisanship aside, and you focus on the people, the innocent people who are being impacted with what's happening in that country? Talk about what folks really need to know at home.
Good, Angela.
Yeah, it's a great question. And one thing that's upset me quite a bit and disappointed me is that since January the 20th, suddenly, lots of ordinary Democrats and liberals and people I follow online have suddenly woken up to the genocide in Gaza and said, this is really bad because Donald Trump's president. Oh, look at the bat. And Trump is doing some horrific things in the Middle East. You know, they'll point to Trump saying ethnic cleansing. They'll point to Trump signing off on 2,000-pound bombs. They'll point to Trump, using Palestinian as a slur. All horrific things that I opposed and warned about last year when people were trying to give Trump a pass on foreign policy. But what upsets me is there's no real reckoning with what Biden oversaw, with what Harris refused to disown, with what Schumer and Jeffries signed off on. And I think that reckoning has to happen. The inability, every time you hear a Democratic Party post-mortem, they refuse to mention Gaza. It's kind of the elephant in the room where they don't talk about how much it cost them votes in places like Michigan and Pennsylvania. They don't talk about how much it damaged their credibility as a party that claims to care about democracy, human rights, equality. So I think that reckoning has to be had. I saw Kamala Harris recently advertise her new upcoming memoir, and she said, I'm going to be very candid. All right, I'll wait and see. If there's not a chapter on Gaza, then it won't be a very candid memoir, because she went on multiple TV shows and was asked, are you going to break with Biden on anything? And she didn't say Gaza. She didn't say anything, to be honest. She went on The View and said nothing. Huge strategic error. And I actually know for a fact, because I know people who were in the White House, in the campaign, who all know that privately Harris was better than Biden on Gaza, but publicly she wasn't. She didn't ever actually message that she would be different. And I think Democrats have to own the hundreds of thousands of children and women and men who were injured, and the at least 30 to 40,000 people minimum who were killed on Joe Biden before Donald Trump even stepped foot into office. The number of deaths in Gaza. Even before Donald Trump became president, Gaza was the worst place in the world to be a child, the worst place in the world to be an aid worker, the worst place in the world to be a journalist, right? That was all before Trump became president. We have to be able to have a reckoning about that. We can argue about would Biden or Harris have been better than Trump? Who cares at this point? The point is right now, as you say, Angela, it was a bipartisan, both sides policy to back the Netanyahu government as he carried out the worst war crimes of our time. We are seeing children being shot in the testicles, according to Dr. Nick Maynard, the UK doctor, in a pattern. He says Israeli soldiers are using civilians and children just for sport, just for target practice. We are paying for that. And I'm so fed up of people coming out and saying, oh, how come I'm not hearing protests about Sudan? Actually, we've covered Sudan on our show. But people cynically going, Sudan or some other part of the world. And it's like, well, we're not funding the militaries in those places doing the killing. My and your tax dollars are helping to kill children and make Gaza's kids the most amputated cohort of children in modern world history. We paid for that. So yes, we're going to be pissed off about that forever.
I don't know if you saw, but and I'm going to yield to you, Andrew, because I know we're almost out of time.
We're wrapping, yeah.
I just was nodding so hard, my headphones literally fell off. So I
saw. Well, we warned y'all that you were going to hear a truth teller on this side of the conversation, and Mehdi, you don't disappoint in telling the truth. And I just wonder, as we part from each other, where the bright spot? What if there is a bright spot people can be left with on our side? Where are you seeing it and sensing it right now? And then where can people find you?
The bright spot has always been the same place, even at the height of the Gaza killings last year. The same answer, which is young people, which is students, which is activists, which is organizers. You look at the generational divide in American politics; it is massive on each, not just on Gaza, but on multiple issues. The kids are all right, as they say, and that's why the Trump administration is cracking down on campuses. Is one very simple reason, because they know that the biggest threat is from the youth vote. You look at Mamdani and how he won that New York Democratic mayoral primary; huge surge in young people turning out to vote who had never voted before. So that's what keeps me hopeful, is that the young folks have got their heads in the right place. And as for me, where you can find me, it's zeteo.com, zeteo.com. That's where we are. Become a subscriber, support independent journalism, because mainstream media is part of the reason we are in the shit show we're in.
Say it again.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, we just want to thank you. I'll say on my part and on Tiffany's part, who misses you
Miss Tiffany.
a lot.
My former colleague.
In the Congo
Both
right
of us
now.
have been reborn.
Yeah,
yes.
Andrew. That's it. Be reborn to produce even greater. And your mission and work is greater. But we want to thank you for taking some time. You got to come back.
Yes. I got to come back when Tiffany's
chat it
back.
up with us.
Yes.
Indeed.
Thank you both. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother. Best wishes.
I appreciate it. So everybody, you know that our girl didn't get to see her favorite guy, Mehdi Hasan, join us for that incredible interview and conversation. He is a brilliant debater and also, as Andrew said, a brilliant truth teller. Our good friend and sister is in the continent, and she has a very special message from the ground that she wants to share with all of us. Let's take a look.
Welcome home, Native Land fam. Of course, it's your co-host, Tiffany Cross. I'm so sorry I'm missing this week's show, but I'm actually here in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I am in the capital of Kinshasa. You can see behind me, just over my shoulder, just across that river is Brazzaville. And I am here on ground learning about the conflict that's happening here. Because of cobalt, which is a mineral here that powers our cell phones, the very thing I'm filming on. And millions of people have lost their lives because rebel fighting in the east, I am of course in the west at the capital in Kinshasa, but a lot of fighting in the east that could very easily find its way to the west has claimed the lives of so many people here. And this really should be one of the wealthiest countries on the continent. Given the amount of minerals that they have here. Unfortunately, the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo have not benefited at all from the billions and billions of dollars of minerals here. I was here for an event called Pentecost, and they showed video where the rebels would show up and kill people on site, and children as young as 2 and 3 years old would just be walking around aimlessly in their communities where they lived after coming back and finding their entire families slaughtered. Women have been raped here. The rebels use rape as a weapon of war. After raping the women, they have inserted weapons in their vaginal area, anything from knives to stones. The intention is to destroy. Now, while this is completely inhumane and reprehensible, I would like to, when I come back, share on Native Land how these cell phones, our computers, batteries, so many things that we use mindlessly and effortlessly contribute to this conflict here. Now, earlier this year, Donald Trump signed an agreement, and he somewhat did the country a solid by securing the border between the country of the Congo and Rwanda. I will break all that down on a later episode of Native Land Pod, but I did want to let you know why I'm not there. I had an opportunity to speak with the president and the first lady of the Congo here, and it's as you can see, it is a country that has so much potential. There is also beauty in this country, and it never astonishes me how much war, how much barbarism, how much agony the people of the entire continent have suffered, mostly at the hands of European nations. And it does not take away from the beauty of the land nor the beauty of the people. I've been to the homes of people who live here that are gorgeous, beautiful artwork, the vegetation here. So I don't want to present only one side of this beautiful country or one side of this beautiful continent. But it has been a very eye-opening experience. It's one thing to read about the conflict. It's another thing completely to be on ground and understand it from a different perspective. So hopefully I'll be able to say more on a future episode of Native Land Pod about the conflict here, the role we play in it, as America being the largest consumer economy that benefits from the minerals here. So sorry to miss this week's episode. I will be back soon, and welcome home, y'all.
Well, that is our sister, Tiffany Cross, bringing us, as a true journalist that she is, bringing us her take from the Congo, where she is, and we look forward to welcoming her back home physically here and hearing what more lessons she may have to share with us.
You know what I really appreciate about what Tiff shared, Andrew, is there's been so much conversation when Gaza is addressed, just like it was with Mehdi. And there are Black folks who say, well, what about what's happening in Rwanda or the Congo or Sudan? And we shouldn't be in whataboutism or oppression Olympics. But what we also shouldn't do is turn a blind eye to what is happening in the motherland. Yeah. So I'm very, very grateful for what Tiff is saying. She's, questioning and checking and hearing about firsthand. And I just hope that we will all be accountable to continue to do that same work ourselves. That's
real, especially where it's Western habits and Western, desires that are fueling so much of what's happening to devastating degree outside of American U.S. borders. But we thank her for that.
What's the matter with Texas and Missouri and Louisiana and a lot more? We're going to get to all of that right after this break.
Greetings, Native Land Pod. Hi, my name is Keith. I'm from D.C. And recently you were all talking about the redistricting of Texas. Well, here's my idea, and I brought this before, is that we redistrict the whole nation, which means we would revise the electoral college to increase the representation of representatives in the House of Representatives. Right now, we're severely underrepresented. My idea is that we would take the population of the smallest state in the union, which is Wyoming right now, that has 580,000 people. We would divide each state by the size of Wyoming and increase the representation in each one of those states. For example, the representation in California would increase from 55 to 67.1. You ask us, what do we do at 0.1? Well, we would have a chief electoral, and that chief electoral would have a voting power of 1.1. And that as far as the national election of president, you only have a power of 1. Again, that is my idea, is to increase, revise it. We can squash all this redistricting all over the state. We can just do a ratification of electoral college, get it done. Thanks. That's my recommendation. Thanks for having me.
All right. So we got a recommendation there on how we might make the electoral college map look a little bit more fair, Angela. And just before we take your response, I just wanted for the viewers to help us understand where we sit today, which is, yes, Wyoming is the lowest populated state in the union. They have 2 U.S. Senate seats, as every state in the union has 2 seats. And they've got 1 congressional seat. And the questioner was right, Mr. Keith. They said at about half? No, on average, the each member of Congress represents about 761,000 people. Wyoming sits under that at about 550 plus thousand folks living in that state. However, the Constitution limits, actually, it's law that limits since 1911, I believe. The practice has been that the Congress will be capped at 435 members, and that the minimum number of people required to constitute a seat will basically be divided based off that 535 members amongst the various states, with, again, Wyoming, that not being applicable because Wyoming will maintain one seat unless it increases beyond that average number, 760 plus population, but they will maintain one seat. Right now, the problem with the recommendation is that we would have to grow the House of Representatives pretty substantially if we began dividing the U.S. population basically by 550,000 people per every seat in Congress. The number of seats are capped, 435, and then obviously the U.S. Senate is capped at 2 members per state. So I don't know. Do you have a reaction to that idea? I just wanted to set the plate so that folks, sort of had a sense of how we got or where we are.
Well, I think that you've done a great job at answering Keith's question or responding to Keith's ideas. Keith always has big ideas. For those of you at home listening, because you are welcome home, we always welcome your big ideas, no matter how crazy, large, miraculous they sound, or basic, and we should have been did that. Yeah. We're here for it. So please make sure you continue to send in your questions, thoughts, and ideas, and your challenges to the host, especially when you say, Angela, Miss Cross. I was going to say, Andrew, what is fascinating about this redistricting conversation to me is that it's not new. We have seen, it's not just Texas. Right. Of course, recently in Missouri, the governor said that he's interested in redrawing the lines where the first Black member of Congress in Missouri sits, in Kansas City, rather, not in all of Missouri, but in Kansas City. Who's a former mayor of Kansas City, my former boss, the former CBC chair, Congressman Emanuel Cleaver II. They're talking about redrawing the line so that he would not be in a district that represents Kansas City anymore. We are hearing these same things about Louisiana. As you know, was an open court case, Calle in Louisiana, that would challenge again the seat that Cleo Fields now operates or occupies in the Baton Rouge area. What I think that we have to wrestle with here is why. And the thing that is most troubling to me, as you all know, NLP listeners, I had Jolanda Jones on, who's a state rep in Texas representing the Houston area yesterday.
This week, yeah.
This week, in case you didn't hear it. We record on Wednesdays. I'm sorry, y'all. Andrew, I have ADD bad today, and now when you do that, I can't remember what I'm saying.
Had Jolanda Jones. Yes.
I had Jolanda Jones on yesterday, and she is one of the members of the Texas delegation that has fled the state to prevent Governor Abbott from getting this very unconstitutional, hyper-racist redistricting and gerrymandered process done in an off year. As a reminder, y'all, as Andrew just said, it is 2025. This happens in 2020. Generally, by the time we get to about 2022, by the time we get to a midterm election, this has been asked, answered, and resolved, even if we don't like the outcome. Right. So what has happened is there was an off-year test. And Jolanda brought this up on the podcast on Tuesday. There's been an off-year test. That off-year test didn't start with Texas. The off-year test started with North Carolina. And Andrew might be ready to fight me because he might say, well, they really tested it out in Florida first. But at least in Florida, it was attached to the 2020 census. This in North Carolina last year was just randomly in 2023. Republican leaders decided that they wanted to redraw maps to see what would happen and to restrict the number of Black elected officials in North Carolina. So now that case is going to a 3-panel court in close to Winston-Salem to determine whether or not it's constitutional or unconstitutional. Here's the bottom line. We're watching Texas legislators flee
Yeah.
But what we're really watching, Andrew, I think for people who don't understand redistricting, what is that? Gerrymandering, what is that? Why should we care? All people right now are watching is like, they on the run and we here for the fight.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about this is you brought up earlier, your memory is so good. You brought up earlier what happened when Texas state legislators did this in 2021.
Yeah.
And you said that is how Jasmine Crockett met her rise to fame.
Yeah,
so
naturally, how a lot of us came to know her and see her.
Let's watch that clip.
Yeah.
We have not committed a crime. And so under the U.S. Constitution and the Texas Constitution, you can't arrest people that haven't committed a crime. So we've not committed a crime. What can happen is we can be detained. So we can have someone come and get us, but that's so long as they have jurisdiction. And I know that the governor may believe that he's president now, but he's not, and hopefully will never be the president of these United States. But he does not have jurisdiction over all United States. He has jurisdiction over Texas. And so it's actually our sergeants in the House that it says in the rules that they can actually go after us. The law is still unclear as to whether or not the speaker can then go ahead and say, hey, we're going to deputize these DPS officers, and these officers can go after them. But even still, their jurisdiction would not extend outside the state of Texas.
So
this is such an important point, Angela, that you bring up, because we're hearing a lot of conversation right now, a lot of blunder out of the governor of Texas saying they're creating, he's now said or issued a writ to go and bring these members back to Texas to arrest them.
Warrants.
Issue warrants for them on a civil law citation, if you will. So Jasmine, Congressman Crockett, who many of us got introduced to through means like Don Lemon, through her interviews that she did the last time Texas tried to try some corrupt stuff. And her comment, Angela, as I listened, is just as apropos today as it was, back in 2021 about the jurisdiction of the governor to come after them and to arrest them. But your point was, people are saying that they're fleeing the battle, fleeing the fight. Talk about how their fleeing is not, running from the fight, but in fact bringing the fight directly to the jaw of the governor and to the Republican-led legislature.
Well, you know what I love about the strategy is, one, we keep saying in this moment, we don't have to go and create new tactics. Andrew, I love what you've done also on your solo pods, where you train people how to organize. Yeah. And this is one of those tactics. The Texas state legislature has been engaging in fleeing as a strategy since 1870. It is not new. We say there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right.
We can fight with old tactics and just update how we use those old tactics and tools. They are doing that right now. And what Jasmine is saying is like, look, he can issue a warrant. It doesn't have any jurisdiction outside of the state. Right. And I think that's so important for people to realize. I also think there's something that gets in the psyche of a Democratic governor, right? That may have lacked the political will to engage in this type of fight. But now they may have a little sauce because the Texas Dems who are fleeing and walking and embodying courage, they got to be like, well, I can't just let y'all hang out there by yourselves. So let me meet you where you are. One of those governors who surprised me, and we heard this from Mehdi earlier, is Governor Hochul in New York. Let's run what she said recently.
I have news flash for Republicans in Texas. This is no longer the Wild West. We're not going to tolerate our democracy being stolen in a modern-day stagecoach hoist by a bunch of law-breaking cowboys. Americans don't want a system that's stacked against them. They believe in fairness. It's fundamental. And I'll tell you this, they're done with the chaos. They're done with the cruelty. And I would say they're ready to vote Republicans out of power in Washington, certainly in the upcoming 2026 elections. Republicans know this. They've seen the polls. They know they're sliding downhill because Americans are rejecting their policies. So this is why they're fighting. They know they'll lose the elections, but to subvert the will of the people, they're hell-bent on rigging the system. Rigging the system is un-American. All's fair in love and war. That's why I'm exploring with our leaders every option to redraw our state congressional lines as soon as possible. Our state legislative leaders, Carol Heastie, Majority Leader Andre Stewart Cousins, they're on board, as are their members. We're already working on a legislative process, reviewing our legal strategies, and we'll do everything in our power to stop this brazen assault.
Andrew?
Angela, tell us, so why for you was that a surprise? And I'll say my piece on it.
Because she say all kind of crazy stuff all the time. I be mad at her most of the time.
Yeah.
So I just was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. We got to fight. And I love that Speaker Heastie was right next to her. The thing that I appreciate about this moment, we keep saying that people want to see a fight. We keep hearing that too, right? But part of the fight isn't just this resistance tactic. People want to see an alternative. That alternative is the vision of the opposition. What you get to see from her comments is what the vision of the opposition is. So the resistance was brought to you by the Texas state legislators, right? The Democratic legislators who left. The opposition strategy and the vision is brought to you by those who can govern. And they'll say, if this is what the right wants to do, this is what those who are representing a political entity that will be the demise of our democracy, we are going to show you how we're going to fight back against this democracy. Sure, ideally, we'd love to have this bipartisan or nonpartisan commission that does this great thing. But in the absence of people who are willing to fight on an even and level playing field, we gonna meet them in the mud.
Yeah.
And so they're saying we're not going to let them imbalance the scales of justice. Wherever they create an imbalance, we're gonna set it.
Rebalance it. Yeah.
That's it. And I think that is what a resolution and an alternative looks like. So resistance should not stand alone. Resistance should be met with resolution. And that is where governors, those who can govern, can meet folks in the middle. And I think that's what people want to see.
Yeah. And just so our listeners understand what the governor and even we're referring to when we talk about this imbalance and the changing of the rules, as it's already been established, these processes for changing congressional maps happen after the census. Typically between the change in the census and maybe 2 years out, mostly by and large, litigation has been settled. And those maps are now the maps that are in place. With some very, very large exceptions, those maps are established within time, and then new members to Congress are elected. In this case, the rigging comes in, y'all, and that Texas is saying, all right, we're 5 years in to this census. Why don't we, to advantage, in fact, they were instructed to do this. Let me be clear about this.
Yeah.
They were instructed by Donald Trump to change their maps to produce 5 more Republican congressional seats. This is basically Donald Trump calling Raffensperger in Georgia and saying, hey, go ahead and find me 198, whatever, more thousand votes so that we can win this race, right? We all knew that was illegal. We all knew that was a foul call. So he made that foul call again on this occasion to the governor of Texas. Governor of Texas said, oh, yeah. Why don't we go ahead and do that? Let's find you 5 more seats. Okay, we'll find you the seats that you want so that for the seats that we may lose coming up in the midterm elections, thereby putting Democrats in control of the House of Representatives. And if they stuck together, they could basically end at least the legislative agenda for Donald Trump for the remainder of his term in office. So high stakes. But in this case, they are going about it by breaking the rules, by basically saying they haven't gotten any brand new numbers of population. They haven't had all these new folks moving to the state in this period of time. What they're going to do is they're going to take seats that right now Democrats hold. They're going to move huge sums of Democrats out of those districts that create Democratic seats, put them into strong Republican seats by breaking them up and basically creating a situation where they could not elect a Democrat if their full breath and body were to go out and vote wholesale to elect Democrats. They couldn't do it anymore because those Democratic votes would now be broken up and spread out. In some cases, in the case of Austin, Texas, they would be broken off into a district that spans 3.5 hours drive away from their city center. where they may not have anything in common by interest of the folks who are 3.5 hours away from them, but they will be split that hard so that they could never, ever elect a Democrat to their seat in Congress. That's a complete subversion of the rules. They are cheating just so that they can maintain their advantage. That's the illegal part of this. And the question that Angela is raising, or the point that she's making, is that there are Democratic governors who right now sit in position where they could also force their states or take steps to force their states into redrawing their seats and doing the same thing, basically taking Republican seats right now, splitting those seats out by taking conservatives and divvying them up amongst other seats and creating the opportunity for only Democrats to be elected there. That hasn't been the take that that's not been the step or the direction we've gone in the past. And there are probably some people out there, I think we may even have a clip of someone making this argument, who are saying we shouldn't do that because we have been the good government people that have been pushing for, independent redistricting commissions that are nonpartisan. Well, that may be the ideal, but the question is should we stick to that now, or do we have to meet the knife fight with a knife and not a spoon, a plastic spoon?
A plastic ass spoon, maybe compostable. As soon as you try to pick something up, the thing break off in there. Shout out to the compostables, though. I do love y'all. I was going to say, Andrew, you raise a great point. We should continue that part of the conversation in the mini pod.
Okay.
Because I think that we should analyze, ideology versus reality. Should you be in the ideals or should you be in the real? And I have to tell you this. This is very important. They're doing this on the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. This Voting Rights Act that has been virtually gutted. Again, we talked about this mostly on the Solo Pod Tuesday, but I have something else very important I need to tell you. And it's an apology. And I wish Tiff was here for this. I got so chin-checked this week talking to someone who is a hero to many of us, Sherilyn Ifill. Who used to run the Legal Defense Fund, now is a prestigious and amazing leader professor at Howard University, leading the 14th Amendment Center there. What we have to know is this. Sherilyn said that Donald Trump asked for Texas to find him 5 seats. He wanted those 5 seats so that he could have the congressional majority. She said that there absolutely will be an election in 2026 because he's going to search for this majority. Now, she says she didn't know about 28. So I'm retracting my apology for 2028, Andrew. Okay. But now I'm going to eagerly count down with you how many days we have left until the election. But I wanted to apologize to you because it's a perspective I hadn't considered when she said that he's going to hunt for seats, right? Like if he's going to hunt for seats, of course, states can determine if they're going to have an election or not. Again, we don't know if it's going to be fair or not. But the point around, well, clearly it's not going to be fair if he can get these seats. But the point around he's going to hunt for the seats, which means he knows that he needs more power, is a fair one. And it was a perspective I hadn't considered. So I wanted to humble myself in front of the Native Land Pod fam to say sorry.
Hey, accepted and really proud of you for that
I
recognition.
apologize well.
You did that well, beautifully.
No, I'm saying normally I do. I just wish I didn't say the thing to have to apologize.
Well, only a few times does it happen in broad daylight. So we thank you. I'm messing with you because I don't want to lose this strand.
Yes.
The reason why they would be hunting for votes is that they are going to need a Congress that is positioned to say whether or not they will count electoral votes at the next presidential election. Again, in the presidential election, the electoral college votes, they must be accepted by the sitting U.S. Congress. The sitting U.S. Congress that gets elected in 2026 will be the people who will be sitting in those seats come time to count the electoral votes that are produced from the elections in 2025, the presidential elections of 2025. So if those members of Congress, those radical members of Congress who Trump is trying to get seated in this next congressional election decide that they don't want to count the electoral votes, that it's not necessary, or they can't come to agreement on those electoral votes, does then the president get to extend his term? Does the sitting president now extend their term because there is not a Congress that's willing to count and certify the electoral college votes that gets us to the required amount needed for a new president to be seated?
Yeah. Well,
that's what's at stake.
All of that is at stake. And as you can see, y'all, we have a lot more to talk about with this. So we're going to go ahead and get right into that in our mini pod today on if we should be in what is ideal or what is real. And on the other side of repentance should always be calls to action. So we'll be right back with those three. Okay. Well, my call to action is if y'all see Tiff at the airport, yell, welcome home, y'all.
Yes. Yes. That'd be a beautiful welcome back into the country.
Yes.
And for my CTA, I just want us to pay as much attention as we can and lift up in our own social media as much as we can this redistricting fight. As Angela said in her mini this week, as we tried to emphasize here on this week's show, this is not a fight that is left to one state. While it may be kicking off as far as you're concerned in the state of Texas, you already hear rumors in my state, the state of Florida, which is rarely mentioned in the national conversation about this. The governor's already putting out there, hey, I may be interested in calling a special session to redraw the maps here in Florida. And already they have been committed to erasing Black representation in congressional seats from the state of Florida. But if this arms race is to continue, it's possible that every Democrat and Republican state and governor who have the power to open back up this conversation, they may do so. And I think it's going to be a race to the bottom for the country. But I have to say, I'm in full favor of fighting fire with fire, lest we lose the entire thread of our democracy. So pay attention, lift this argument up. It's not asinine. It's not unrelated. It's extremely related to the future of where we head as a country. That's my CTA.
Andrew, since Tiff isn't here, can we have one more CTA?
Yeah, you're going to give it go.
Y'all take the survey. We got $50. You know how the Looney said, I got 5 on it? We got 50 on it. That is 10 times 5 on it. My math ain't that good, but that's good enough.
And rumor has it, I know a co-host who's trying to, raise that. So y'all, hey, get in this game right now.
You trying to raise $50?
No, I heard you was trying to raise the sum. Increase the sum.
Raise the sum.
Raise the sum.
Well, now that I found out that people are active on the 50, I think I'm going to keep my
We're going to ride it out for a minute.
We're going to ride it out.
Back in.
Anyway, welcome home, y'all. Andrew, do you want to tell them how many days till the midterm, since apparently we're going to have them?
Well, now that we on this podcast is almost in full agreement, we'll see where Tiffany is when she comes back. There are 453 days until the midterm elections, which we believe are going to occur. If for no other reason, this is just another route for this president to maintain permanent power. As always, we want you and everyone to leave us a review and subscribe to Native Land Pod. We're available on all podcast platforms as well as YouTube. And if you're looking for more shows like ours, well, check out a few other shows on Recent Choice Media. They are Spolitics with Jamil Hill. We love you, Jamil. Off the Cup, CUPP with Essie Cup. And our newest addition, our friend, the man, Noah DeBrasso, who you've heard on this show and others, who also has his show, Now You Know. All right, follow us. Don't forget on social media, subscribe, text, email to our Native Land Pod email list. You can get there by nativelandpod.com, of course, and subscribe. We are your hosts, Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross in absentia, and I'm Andrew Gillum. Welcome home.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Rye, Gillum, and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth. Even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.